The alien capital was burning. Black smoke rose above the silver towers, turning the sky dark. The streets, once filled with music and lights, now echoed with screams. Soldiers in black armor marched through every road, searching, hunting, in. The middle of it all, a young alien princess ran for her life. Her long ceremonial dress was torn at the edges, and the fine jewels she once wore were gone. Her silver-blue skin was smeared with dust and blood. Her eyes, once proud, were now wide with fear. She was barely in her late teens by human years, and tonight she had lost everything. Her family had been taken. Her royal guards had either been killed or had betrayed her. Doors she knocked on were slammed in her face. People she had greeted with smiles in the palace now whispered in fear when they saw her. They say she brought this war. Someone muttered from behind a closed window. She's cursed, another voice said. The princess ignored the words. She had no choice. If she stopped, they would catch her. And if they caught her, she would never see another sunrise. She turned into a narrow alley, her breath coming in short gasps. But she froze. Ahead of her were 3 soldiers in black armor, their glowing visors locking onto her instantly. There she is, one of them shouted. She spun around, but more soldiers were behind her. The walls on either side were too high to climb. She was trapped, her heart pounded in her chest. She could hear her own breathing louder than the shouts. She stepped back until her shoulder hit something solid. She turned and saw him, a human. He was leaning against the wall, holding a long rifle across his chest. His clothes were dusty, his armor mismatched, clearly not one of the local soldiers. He didn't move. His eyes were calm, but sharp, like a man who had seen too many battles. The princess felt a spark of hope and fear at the same time. Humans were rare in her world. Some were mercenaries, others were worse. She didn't know which one he was. "They'll kill me," she whispered, her voice shaking. The human glanced past her at the soldiers approaching. His jaw tightened slightly. He didn't ask who she was. He didn't ask why she was running. The soldiers shouted, "Step aside, human. That's royal property." Property. The word made the princess's stomach twist. The human slowly pushed off the wall. He stepped forward, placing himself between her and the soldiers. "You have 3 seconds to move," the lead soldier growled. The human didn't move. "You want her?" he said in a low, steady voice. "You'll have to go through me." The soldiers laughed. 1 man against 10. The human's lips curved into a faint smile. "I've done worse." Before they could react, he lifted his rifle. A blinding flash filled the alley as he fired, hitting the first soldier square in the chest. The others stumbled back, startled. "Run," he told the princess. She didn't think. She obeyed. He moved with her, keeping her behind him as they pushed through the chaos. Every turn they took seemed to have more soldiers, but the humans' aim was fast and deadly. He didn't waste a single shot. When he was out of bullets, he switched to a knife, moving like someone who had fought for survival his whole life. Finally, they ducked into a side passage behind an abandoned shop. The smell of smoke was everywhere. The princess leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. "Why? Why did you help me?" she asked between breaths. The human didn't look at her. He scanned the street, checking for danger. "You looked like you needed someone," he said. "And I'm someone." It was such a strange answer that she almost laughed, but the fear in her chest wouldn't let her. "Do you even know who I am?" she asked. He gave her a quick glance. "Doesn't matter. Right now, you're someone they want dead. That's enough." Footsteps echoed nearby, more soldiers searching. "We can't stay here," he said. "Follow me if you want to live." Something inside her told her to trust him. Maybe it was the way he had stood in front of her without hesitation. Maybe it was the way he moved, not like a man looking for reward, but like someone who had already made his choice. The princess took a deep breath and nodded. "All right, I'll follow." The human gave a short nod, then turned and slipped into the shadows, his steps silent. She followed closely, her heart still pounding. In the distance, the palace continued to burn. The city was no longer hers. Everyone she had trusted had betrayed her. Everyone except this strange human she had met in the darkest moment of her life, and deep inside, she wondered, could he truly be her last ally? The princess followed the human through the maze of alleys. The city felt like a giant trap. Every corner could hide enemies. Smoke drifted between the buildings, making her cough. The sound of marching boots echoed from every direction. The human moved quickly but carefully, his eyes scanning every doorway and shadow. He seemed to know exactly where to step so the old wood wouldn't creak, where to cross so the moonlight wouldn't expose them. "How do you know these streets?" she whispered. He didn't look back. "I've been here before, not for good reasons." They turned a corner and froze. A patrol of soldiers blocked the road ahead, their black armor glowing faintly under the firelight. The leader lifted his head. "There, stop them." The human grabbed her wrist and pulled her down. Another alley. They ran past broken carts and piles of rubble. The sound of boots and shouts followed close behind. He spotted a stack of old barrels. Without stopping, he kicked one hard, sending it rolling into the path behind them. The soldiers stumbled over it, buying them a few seconds. They ducked into a narrow lane between two leaning houses. The walls were so close, the princess had to turn sideways to pass. Somewhere above them, a cat-like creature hissed. "Can't keep running," she gasped, her legs aching. "You can," he said sharply. "Just a little more." They reached a dead-end, a tall wall covered with vines. The princess looked at him, panicked. "We're trapped." "Not yet." He crouched and laced his fingers together. "Step here. Climb." She hesitated, but his eyes told her he wasn't asking twice. She put her foot in his hands, and he lifted her easily. She grabbed the vines and pulled herself up, the rough stems scratching her palms. When she reached the top, she turned back to help him, but he had already scaled it in one leap, using a drainpipe. They dropped into the next street. It was quieter here, the shouts now far behind. But the human didn't relax. "Noise dies down before a kill," he muttered. The princess didn't want to ask what that meant. They moved toward an old warehouse at the end of the road. Stores were half broken, the windows covered in dust. The human pushed the door open, just enough for them to slip inside. The air smelled of metal and oil. Broken machines lay scattered around, and the floor was littered with old tools. The human walked to the back and checked the exits. Satisfied, he nodded for her to sit. "This will do for a few minutes," he said. She sank onto a crate, her hands trembling. "You could have left me back there. Why didn't you?" He paused, leaning against a pillar. "Once, a man saved my life for no reason. No payment, no promise, I guess. I'm paying it forward." She stared at him. "You still don't know who I am?" "I don't care," he said simply. "Names don't matter when someone's trying to kill you." She lowered her gaze. "My uncle betrayed me. He told the court I was working with our enemies. My own guards turned against me. I have no one left. Now you have me," he said. "That's one." She almost smiled, but then a noise outside made her freeze. Voices, the sound of heavy boots crunching. Gravel. The human motioned for her to stay quiet. He moved to the nearest window and peered out. A squad of soldiers was searching the street. "They're sweeping this area," he whispered. "We can't stay here." He slung his rifle over his shoulder and pulled out a small knife. "We move through the rooftops. It's harder for them to track us up there." They climbed a rusted ladder at the back of the warehouse. The metal groaned under their weight, but held. From the roof, the city looked like a sea of fire and shadows. The human led her across wooden planks between buildings. Below, soldiers ran through the streets. Unaware, the two of them were just above their heads. At one point, the plank cracked under her foot. She gasped and nearly fell, but the human grabbed her wrist, holding her steady. "Careful," he said. They continued until they reached a flat roof with a low wall. The human crouched, scanning the street below. "We'll head to the old workshop near the river," he said. "Fewer patrols there." She hesitated. "How do you know all these places?" His jaw tightened. "Because I've hidden from these people before." They made their way down from the rooftops into another side alley. The workshop was just ahead, but the princess could feel its size watching them. A shadow moved. "Move," the human shouted, pushing her forward as a blast of plasma hit the wall where she'd been standing. 3 bounty hunters stepped from the darkness, their weapons glowing. "We'll take the girl," one sneered. "You can walk away, human." The human stepped in front of her again, knife ready. Not happening. The street went silent. The air tense like the moment before lightning strikes, and the princess realized this night was far from over. The bounty hunters moved slowly, spreading out to block the narrow street. Their armor was mismatched, their faces hidden behind masks. The glow of their plasma weapons lit the smoke swirling between them. The human didn't step back. He kept his body in front of the princess, one hand holding the knife, the other steady at his side. "You're surrounded," one of the bounty hunters said. His voice was deep and cold. "Give us the girl, and we might let you walk away." The human tilted his head slightly, as if thinking. "You might," he said. "But I don't like those odds." Without warning, he threw a small metal sphere at the ground. It exploded in a flash of blinding light. The bounty hunters cursed and stumbled back, their visors flashing static. "Run," he shouted. The princess didn't hesitate. She sprinted with him down the nearest alley, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Behind them, angry voices shouted orders, and the sound of boots pounded on stone. They darted through the twisting streets until they found a half-collapsed bridge. The human led her underneath, into a tunnel that smelled of damp stone and rust. Only when they were deep inside did they stop. The princess leaned against the wall, gasping for air. "Who are you?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. He was listening, his eyes scanning the dark tunnel. After a moment, he turned to her. "I knew your father," he said. She froze. "You knew him?" He nodded. "Years ago, before all this, he saved my life." She blinked in shock. "That's impossible. My father never." "He was in disguise," the human said quietly. "I was a soldier in a border war. I was left behind, wounded. Your father was traveling in secret to meet an ally. He found me, carried me to safety, and made me promise that if I ever had the chance, I'd protect his bloodline." The princess's throat tightened. And now," he said, "this is that chance." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever told her about this. If what he said was true, then her father had trusted him deeply. Why didn't my father tell me? She asked softly. "Maybe he thought you were too young. Maybe he hoped you'd never need me." His voice was calm, but there was something sad in it. Before she could respond, a faint sound echoed in the tunnel, the scraping of boots on stone. "They're tracking us," the human said quickly. "We have to move." He led her deeper into the tunnel until they reached a heavy iron door. It was rusted, but he pushed on a hidden panel, and the lock clicked open. "How did you?" she began. "I've been here before," he said. "This is part of a safe route. Very few people know it exists." The door opened into a hidden passage lit by faint blue lights. The air here was cooler, and the noise of the city was gone. The princess followed him, her mind spinning. A safe route. Her father saving this man, and now this human, risking his life for her when everyone else had turned away. They walked for several minutes until they came to a small chamber filled with old supplies, water cans, dried food, spare clothes. This will be safe for a while, he said. She sat on a crate, staring at him. You could have left the city by now, she said. Why stay? I told you, he said. Your father saved me. I keep my word. The princess studied his face. There were scars there, the kind that came from battles fought up close. His eyes were sharp, but not unkind. She could see now that he wasn't doing this for payment or politics. He was doing it because of a promise. For the first time in days, she felt something close to safety. But it didn't last. A faint beeping sound came from somewhere in the room. The human's expression darkened. He moved quickly to a crate and pulled out a small tracking device, its light blinking red. They've found this place, he said. We have minutes before they're here. The princess's stomach dropped. Where do we go now? There's one last exit, he said. But it's dangerous. We'll be out in the open for a while. Do we have a choice? She asked. He shook his head. No. He packed what supplies he could carry, then handed her a small dagger. If they get past me, you use this. You aim for the weak points in their armor. Don't think, just act. She took the dagger with trembling hands. I don't know if I can. You can, he said firmly. And you will. Because if you don't, everything ends here. They moved toward the far side of the chamber, where another iron door waited. He pressed his hand against a scanner, and the door slid open to reveal a sloping passage that led upward as they began. To climb, the princess looked at his back and realized something. This man was more than just her last hope. He was a piece of her father's past, and maybe the key to her future. But above them, she could already hear the sound of boots and weapons being prepared. The chase wasn't over. It was only getting more dangerous. The iron door opened to a narrow stone stairway. The human led the way, moving quickly but quietly. The princess followed close behind, gripping the small dagger he had given her. Above, a faint light glowed from the end of the passage. It wasn't the harsh firelight of burning streets. It was warm, steady, like the glow of a safe hearth. When they reached the top, the passage opened into the back room of a large house. The air smelled faintly of herbs and warm bread. The princess's heart eased a little. She knew this place. This is Merchant Ralvek's house, she whispered. He used to bring gifts to the palace. My father trusted him. The human gave her a quick glance. Trust is dangerous now. Let me speak first. They stepped into the main room. An older alien man with gray streaks in his hair was sitting at a table, counting coins. His eyes widened when he saw the princess. Your Highness, he exclaimed, standing quickly. By the stars, I thought you were. He stopped himself and bowed low. Come, sit. You must be starving. He rushed to bring bread, fruit, and a jug of water. The princess felt relief flood her chest. Ralvek, everyone else turned me away. I didn't know where else to go. Ralvek's voice was warm. You are safe here, child. No one will harm you under my roof. The human stood by the door, watching silently. His eyes didn't leave the merchant for even a second. The princess ate quickly, hunger overpowering her caution. But the human didn't touch the food. After a few minutes, the merchant said, You'll need rest before you can travel again. I can prepare the guest room. The human's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. And who will guard the door while we sleep? Ralvek smiled faintly. You've been running all night, stranger. Surely even you need to close your eyes. The human didn't answer. He moved slowly toward the table and placed his hand on one of the merchant's ledgers. His eyes scanned the page. Then he saw a hastily written note at the bottom. Read, alert the palace guard immediately. Reward promised for live capture. The human's jaw tightened. Get up, he said to the princess. She blinked. What? Why? Now, he said sharply. His tone made her freeze. Ralvek's face turned pale. Now. There's no need to. The human grabbed the princess's arm and pulled her toward the back door, and that's when they heard it. The faint creak of boots on the wooden steps outside. The merchant's voice hardened. You can't protect her forever, human. She belongs to the council now. Hand her over, and you'll live. The princess's stomach dropped. Ralvek. Why? Because loyalty is worth nothing when gold is worth more, he said coldly. The front door slammed. Open 5 palace soldiers poured inside, their weapons raised. The human shoved the princess toward the kitchen. Go, through the cellar. He pulled his knife and met the soldier's head-on. The first came to close one swift move, and the human sent him crashing into a wall. The second swung a blade, but the human ducked under it and slammed his elbow into the soldier's chest. Move, princess, he shouted. She scrambled into the kitchen, throwing open the cellar door. The stairs were narrow and steep. She could still hear the clash of weapons behind her, the grunt of effort in the human's voice. By the time she reached the bottom, he was right behind her, breathing hard. His shirt had a slash in it where a blade had grazed him. Which way? She asked, panic rising. He scanned the dark cellar. Rolled delivery hatch. They crawled through the hatch into a narrow lane behind the house. The air outside was colder now, the night deeper. But they didn't have time to rest. Shouts erupted behind them as soldiers realized they'd escaped again. The human led her through twisting alleys until the lights of the merchant's house were gone. They stopped under an archway, both breathing. Heavily, the princess's voice shook. Everyone. Every single person I thought I could trust is gone. The human's voice was firm. Not everyone. She looked at him. You could have left me there. You could have traded me for gold. He didn't answer right away. His eyes met hers, steady and unflinching. I made a promise, and I don't break promises. For a long moment, neither spoke. The sound of the city burning filled the silence. Finally, he said, we can't go to anyone else. From here on, we move alone. And we move fast. The princess nodded slowly. Then I'll follow you. No matter where we have to go. He gave a small nod. Good, because where we're going next is the most dangerous part of the city. The words sent a shiver through her. She didn't know what lay ahead, but after Ralvek's betrayal, she knew one thing for certain. If she lost this human, she would have no one left at all. The city lights faded behind them. Ahead stretched the wasteland, an endless sea of cracked earth, jagged rocks, and shifting sand. The air smelled dry and lifeless, and the wind carried dust that stung their eyes. The princess pulled her thin cloak tighter around herself. No one can survive out here, she whispered. The human glanced at her. People can survive anywhere, if they know how. They had left the last alley 2 hours ago, moving quickly through the outskirts until the black walls of the city were far behind. Now there was nothing but open ground under a starless sky. The human stopped and crouched, running his fingers through the dust. We'll head east, he said. There's a hidden trade route, safer than the main road. Safer. From soldiers? She asked. Safer from people, he replied. Out here, people are worse than the land. They began walking again. Every step was slow on the uneven ground. The silence of the wasteland was heavy, broken only by the crunch of their boots and the whistle of the wind. By dawn, the princess's legs ached. Her throat felt like sandpaper. She stumbled more than once. The human noticed. He stopped, opened a small canteen, and handed it to her. Small sips. Make it last. She drank carefully. The water was warm, but it felt like life itself. What about you? She asked. I'll drink later, he said, but she noticed. The canteen was already almost empty. By midday, the sun blazed overhead. The princess's ceremonial dress, already torn, offered little protection. Her skin burned under the heat. The human took a scarf from his pack and wrapped it loosely around her head and shoulders. Keep the sun off your skin, he said. She tried to smile. You sound like you've done this before. He gave a short laugh. Too many times. They walked until the ground began to change. The cracked earth gave way to loose sand, and the wind picked up, hurling it into their faces. Sandstorm, the human said sharply. Move. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward a cluster of boulders in the distance. The wind roared, and the air turned thick with swirling grit. She could barely see his outline in front of her. They reached the rocks just as the storm hit full force. The human pushed her into a narrow gap between two boulders and pressed himself against the entrance, blocking most of the wind. For what felt like hours, the world outside was nothing but howling wind and blinding sand. The princess huddled close, shivering even though the air was hot. When the storm finally passed, the land looked different. The sand had shifted, burying old shapes and revealing others. The human climbed a rock and scanned the horizon. We're close to the old ruins, he said. We'll camp there tonight. They walked again, slower now, saving their strength. By nightfall, they reached the remains of an ancient stone city, half buried in the sand. Broken columns and fallen walls stood like bones in the fading light. The human led her into what had once been a small temple. The roof was mostly gone, but the walls gave shelter from the wind. He built a small fire from dried brush and unpacked a strip of dried meat. She looked at it hungrily, but he handed it to her without eating any himself. You first, he said. She hesitated. We should share. I'll eat later, he said, just like before. But she could see in his eyes that he wasn't lying. He really would wait until she was fed. She chewed slowly, trying to make it last. The firelight flickered across the human's face, highlighting the lines of exhaustion. Why are you risking so much for me? She asked quietly. He poked at the fire with a stick. Because your father once carried me through a battlefield when no one else would. Because I gave my word. And because... He paused. Because I don't like seeing good people crushed by the powerful. Her chest tightened. How do you know I'm good? I don't, he admitted. But I know the people chasing you aren't. They fell into silence. Outside, the wind whispered over the ruins like the voices of ghosts. When? The fire burned low. The human lay on the ground near the entrance, his weapon at his side. Sleep, he told her. I'll keep watch. She wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled her under, in her dreams. She saw the city burning again, saw faces turning away from her, saw her uncle's cold eyes. But in every dream, the human stood there between her and the danger like an unmovable wall. She woke once in the night to find him still awake, his eyes scanning the shadows. For the first time in days, she felt safe enough to close her eyes again. Morning would come soon, and with it, the most dangerous part of their journey. Morning came with a pale, dusty light. The wind had died down, and the ruins lay silent under the rising sun. The princess woke to the smell of smoke from the last embers of their fire. The human was already standing, scanning the horizon. We move now, he said. The sun will be worse today. They packed quickly, leaving no trace of their camp. The human led her deeper into the ruins, past broken archways and half-buried statues. Each step felt like walking through a graveyard of a forgotten kingdom. "What is this place?" she asked. "An old royal city," he said. "Long before your family's time. But there's something here. Your father told me about something hidden." They passed under a massive stone arch carved with strange symbols. The princess brushed her fingers over the markings. "I've seen these. In the palace archives," she whispered. "They're part of our oldest history." The human glanced back at her. "Then you'll understand what we find inside." He led her to the base of a cracked tower. The doorway was blocked by fallen stones, but he began clearing them, revealing a narrow opening just big enough to slip through. Inside, the air was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of old stone and dust. Sunlight streamed through cracks in the walls, illuminating faded murals of kings, queens, and battles long past. They followed a winding corridor until it opened into a vast chamber. The princess froze. It was a throne room, but unlike any she had ever seen. The walls were lined with towering statues of rulers, each one holding a sword pointed to the floor. The floor itself was carved with intricate patterns, and in the center stood a raised dais with a stone throne. The throne glowed faintly, as if lit from within. "This," she whispered, "is impossible." The human's voice was quiet. "Your father called it the first throne, the seat of the first ruler of your people. It's been hidden for centuries. Only a true heir can activate it." She stepped forward slowly, her heart pounding. "Why would he tell you about this?" "Because he knew the day might come when you'd have to prove you're the rightful ruler, and he trusted me to get you here." Her hands trembled as she reached out to touch the throne. The moment her fingers brushed the cold stone, the glow brightened, spreading across the carvings on the floor and up the statues lining the walls. A low hum filled the chamber. Then, in the center of the throne's backrest, a panel slid open, revealing a small crystal sphere. Inside it shimmered an image her father. She gasped and stepped closer. The image spoke in his voice, warm and strong. "My daughter, if you are hearing this, it means the palace has fallen and I am gone. The throne you stand before is the oldest symbol of our people's unity. It will recognize only the true heir. With it comes the authority to call on our allies across the stars. But beware, those who betrayed you will stop at nothing to claim it for themselves." Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, but the image faded, leaving the crystal glowing faintly in her hands. The human watched her quietly. "That's your proof. With this, you can rally those still loyal to you." She looked at him. "Then we have to get it to them." Before he could answer, a sudden sound echoed through the chamber boots on stone. The princess's blood ran cold. The human's eyes narrowed. "We've been followed." From the shadows near the entrance, figures emerge, bounty hunters. Soldiers, and in front of them, a tall alien in ceremonial armor. "Her uncle? Well," he said with a cold smile, "I wondered where you'd run. I see you found the old toys." The princess stepped back, clutching the crystal. "You have no right to be here." "Rights?" he laughed. "Rights belong to the strong. And I see you found a new guard dog." His eyes flicked to the human. "How much is she paying you, mercenary? I'll double it." The human's voice was flat. "She can't afford me, and neither can you." Her uncle's smile vanished. "Kill him. Take her alive." The chamber erupted in chaos. The human moved like lightning, drawing his weapon and firing at the nearest soldier. The princess darted behind one of the statues, clutching the crystal to her chest. Blaster fire lit up the throne room, the hum of the ancient magic growing louder, as if reacting to the fight. Statues cracked under stray shots. The human cut through the soldiers with deadly precision, but there were too many. One bounty hunter grabbed the princess's arm. She twisted, stabbing with the dagger the human had given her. The hunter screamed and let go. "Run to the back," the human shouted. She sprinted toward an archway on the far side of the room. The human fought his way to her, blocking every path her uncle's men tried to take. They reached the exit just as the enemy regrouped. "This isn't over." Her uncle's voice echoed after them. The human didn't look back. He muttered, "But it's about to get a lot more dangerous." The princess clutched the crystal tight. Somewhere deep inside, she knew this was no longer just about survival. It was about taking back everything she had lost. They didn't stop running until the ruins were far behind. The sky was still dark, but the first light of dawn was starting to creep over the horizon. The human led the princess to a rocky ridge overlooking a wide valley. Below, an old outpost stood silent, its walls half broken but still defensible. "This will have to do," he said, scanning the area. The princess clutched the glowing crystal to her chest. "They'll come for us." He nodded. "Good. That means we know where they'll be." They climbed down into the outpost. Inside, the human quickly set traps, thin tripwires hidden in the sand, piles of loose rock ready to fall, and a small stash of explosives he had been carrying for emergencies. The princess watched him work, heart heavy. "There's no way. We can hold them off forever." "We don't need forever," he said, tightening a strap on his armor. "We just need long enough for help to arrive." Her eyes widened. "Help sent a signal from the throne room," he explained. "Your father's allies are coming, but they won't get here before sunrise." That meant they had to face the first attack alone. The horizon began to glow red. Shadows moved in the distance, soldiers, bounty hunters, and at their head, her uncle. His ceremonial armor shone in the new light, and his voice carried across the valley. "Give yourself up, niece," he called. "Spare your protector's life, and I may let him leave." The princess's voice was steady. "I will never kneel to a traitor." Her uncle's face darkened. He raised his hand. The soldiers charged. The human moved fast, firing his rifle in controlled bursts. The traps went off, frocks crashed down, tripwires sent soldiers tumbling. But still, they kept coming. The princess ducked behind a wall, clutching the crystal. Every time she peeked out, she saw the human holding the line, his body moving with precision, never letting an enemy pass. Then a blast of plasma hit the wall near her, sending shards of stone flying. She dropped to the ground, heart pounding. "Stay low," the human shouted. More soldiers poured into the outpost. The fight turned brutal close-quarters combat with knives, rifle butts, and bare fists. The human was bleeding from a cut on his temple, but his focus never wavered. One bounty hunter slipped past him, heading straight for the princess. She froze for half a second, then remembered his words. "Don't think, just act." She drew the dagger and lunged, catching the bounty hunter off guard. He fell, groaning. Her hands shook, but she kept hold of the weapon. The human glanced back, a quick nod of approval in his eyes. The sun began to rise fully, turning the sky gold. With the light came the sound of engines, distant at first, then growing louder. Her uncle turned, frowning. On the horizon, ships appeared, sleek and silver, their banners marked with the royal crest. The princess's breath caught. The allies, the human, gave a small smile. Right on time. The incoming ships opened fire on her uncle's forces. Soldiers scattered under the sudden barrage. The tide of battle shifted instantly. Her uncle roared in rage and charged toward her himself, blade drawn. "If I can't have the throne, no one will." The human moved to intercept him. Their blades clashed in a storm of sparks. The fight was fast and vicious, both men striking with deadly intent. The princess watched. fear and anger twisting in her chest. She saw her uncle's blade slice across the human's arm. Saw him stagger but keep fighting. Then the human found an opening. He twisted, disarmed her uncle, and slammed him to the ground. The princess stepped forward, the crystal glowing in her hands. "By the blood of the royal line," she said clearly, "I declare you a traitor to the crown." The allied soldiers took him into custody. Her uncle glared at her, but there was fear in his eyes now. When the battle was over, the allies gathered around her. Many knelt, recognizing the crystal as the symbol of true authority. One of the commanders stepped forward. "Your Highness, we are at your service." The princess turned to the human. He stood a little apart from the others, wiping blood from his brow. "You weren't just my last hope," she said softly. "You're the reason I'm still alive." He gave a tired smile. "I guess my debt to your father is paid." She shook her head. "No, you owe me something else now." His brow lifted. "And what's that?" "Stay," she said simply. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he gave a short nod. "All right, Your Highness." The morning sun bathed the outpost in gold. The city was still far away, but the path to taking it back had begun. And for the first time since her flight began, the princess felt hope, not just for her people, but for the strange human who had stood between her and death again and again.